Okay, so I'm taking a break here. I've been hiking for a few hours up the side of this Laurel summit, and it's a rough trail. I'm wearing boots for the first time this winter. Yeah. So, but it gives me an opportunity here as I take a break. There's snow on the ground. It's November. Let's see, November 9th. I want to do a video here on how to identify plants and trees in the winter when leaves are off. Of course, this one right here is obviously a blackberry bush. The cat's claw is very easy to see. It grows up the trees. It's a heart-shaped leaf. Those are some of the plants that pretty common. But the trees, I mean, let's say you're out here and you have to identify which tree is which, and you don't know. Well, here for one, you can see that. That's a sassafras. I can tell sassafras because there's some green on the bark and underneath it's red. And it always has greenish limbs. Now, one way to tell would be to break that off and go with the smell of it. It should have like a root beer kind of tree pebble smell. You can see it right here. There's another one. It's all sassafras. And the tree beside it, this one, is a maple. If it's a gray maple, how I can tell that is because of the bark. Can you see on the bark here how it makes eye formations where there's a limb? The patterning. See what else we can find. Those are easy ones. Let's get a little tougher here. Maple, easy. What about this guy, huh? That's another maple. A lot of maples in here because when they did logging, what grows back is what's the simplest plant that you'll find that'll grow. Here's a maple. Behind that right there is an oak. I can tell that by the rough bark. Oak's easy too because a lot of times the leaves will stay on them. I'm gonna get down into some of these really beautiful hardwoods that are my favorites to work with. You can see this has all been cut not too long ago. The trees are not that large. It's one of my favorite trees. This is like my bread and butter when I'm doing woodworking, and I always hate to use it because I know one had to die for it to happen. Cherry. How do we identify cherry? Well, look at the bark. See how dark it is and how it's slightly like in little sections like this. You can see the cherry when it gets injured. You can see how it heals. That's one way. Also, I just know cherry. It's just a beautiful wood. It screams just beautiful straight wood. This one right behind it. This is a yellow birch. A lot like the white birch most people have probably seen. Very smooth, very linear this way. Lines go that way on it. Okay. These are all black birch. These little ones are new. And you'll know them by the smell too. You break them off, it's going to smell just like root beer. Here's a maple. Here's a large black birch right over there. Don't be afraid, like if you're close to one, take one of those limbs off, the real small ones, and smell them. You'll get a very strong root beer smell. Birch beer. Good stuff. So when you're out in the middle of winter even, you can still identify many of these trees if you know your trees. I know them because I've spent my whole life out here with them. And I just look at them, okay, there's a birch, there's a maple, there's a oak. The value of this is, let's say you really have to stay somewhere and use one of these trees as a shelter. Okay, you want to build a fire. Okay. Do you see this birch? And that birch. I'll show you something right here. See how this is cleaving? Now I'm not going to take the bark off. But if I cleave that bark right there, the underbark, my grandfather would do this. The underbark is really good for starting a fire with. Plus, what the Lenape would do, they would take a tree just like this one, and that one, and probably that one, and they'd cut all the bark off, okay, into strips like roofing, and they would make a small domed shelter, their little houses that they live in, and that was what they would cover them with, and it retains heat very well. So, a bit of an educational experience for people. Again, that's a blackberry bush right there. My biggest advice for people, if you're out in the woods and you want to really get to know plants, is to, number one, take a class on them. Yes, it sounds stupid. I've never done it. I've had my grandfather, my uncles, everybody taught me so much growing up. But I also had books, because they didn't know everything. And I got a good book that's a guide with pictures in it that gives a very good indication of what plants are edible and which ones are poisonous, how to tell them apart, and more importantly, what the poisonous ones that look like them are. What we're seeing here, now, if I would have gone back in time 100 years before they logged this, let's go back and just imagine this. 100 years ago, massive trees, chestnut, oak, locust, cherry, walnut, you name them all, okay? Tulip trees, magnolias, persimmon, a lot of the wild hazelnut. And what you'll notice now is there's a lot of oak. Just think of all of the trees of that class, the value that they were to the animals to eat. The persimmons, the cherries, the chestnuts, you know. The beech. You see some of these giant oaks here that are probably about 80, 90 years old. And they're given food now, but really drastically affected the deer population because the trees that regrew were not the ones that gave a lot of food for the animals to eat. I just want to take a moment here before I go and just appreciate all of you. These two giant oak. They'd probably go up a good, let's see, 190 to 100 feet. They're younger. They're 80, 90 years old. Like I said, they're in their prime. They're so stately. Up on top of this mountain, Laurel Mountain. All right.